Cameron, I think our other two panelists couldn't make it today, but Ray and Cameron are here to guide us through a journey of resetting their GPS for the mid-year, normal reset time. Normally we'd all be resetting right now, and here we are in 2021 with like nothing really normal. So it's a little bit different. And I particularly asked Ray and Cameron because they have different strengths, different team sizes, and super different paths they've walked as they've really been learning how to do this well. So with that, we'll start how we usually do when we have a panel. Like, we'll have these guys talk a little bit about what they've done for success in the reset / recasting of the vision, as some of you might be experiencing, and then we'll do mastermind around it. So let's begin. So Ray, Cameron, my first question for you guys is, talk to us about how you approached the mid-year, this year being 2020. How did you approach the mid-year, and what are you doing to move forward? Who'd like to start?
Ray, you can go.
Okay. How do I say this? Okay, we all know that the 2020 has been chaotic and unpredictable, and in the midst of all of that, my rainmaker also had a baby unexpectedly, like 4 weeks early, right? So we thought we had sort of an extra month to plan for that whole event, and we did not get that. So also in the midst of that, we lost one of our agents. So we were in a whole upheaval, right? We changed CRMs, and we changed, obviously we're switching from .Luke to DocuSign, and then virtual and from real person. So really we were just like, you know what? Okay, so this is the year of change, and we're just going to embrace it. We're not going to focus on the fact that we are behind on our numbers. We are just going to say, this is where we're at. So how do we make it better, right? How do we move forward? And we sort of talked about, do we change the goal, and do we sort of make things more, I guess, accessible in this time of chaos? And we were like, why would we do that? That's not our goal, right? This is our goal. This is what we committed to. This is what we've been working towards. So just do it. Just because we're not getting there yet doesn't mean we should change the goal. So that's kind of how we sort of approached it. We approached it from the vantage point of, we are in a time of chaos. Do we make it more chaotic and change everything, or do we stay the course and just recommit to it? So that's essentially what we did. We just recommitted to everything and sort of just changed the parameters based on what we've already achieved. So most of what we had achieved from our previous GPS was that we had brought on all of the agents that we were looking to bring on. So now it was more of a focus on getting them productive and successful and helping them to add to team growth, rather than us bringing more people on for growth. That was really the only thing we kind of changed. So we're just recommitting for our GPS.
Oops, I'm muted. For those who were here when we went over a GPS, that was actually like Ray's actual GPS that we were analyzing. And so Ray, tell us about like how you graded your GPS and what grade you got and how that went.
I went at it in the way that you would do something for school, right? I was like, okay, well, there are 4 points to me achieving this priority, and so that means that each point is worth 25%. And I gave us an overall score for the whole GPS, which was, I think, like 40% or something, heavily weighted on the things that like I was responsible for achieving. So I was like, go me, and I can't control, everybody else on my team. So as long as I'm measuring sort of my successes versus like the team success, because I can only control myself. I was like, okay, well, I'm doing better than I thought that I was doing. So yay. And now we sort of have to shift the focus from recruiting, which I was doing really heavily, to now training. So I think that's really, that's how I did it. I was just like, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. What score would it be if, I gave this to like some college professor and said, how much of this did I complete? I wasn't overly enthusiastic about it because I knew that it wasn't going to be great. I kind of resisted it, but I mean, it needed to be done. And when I showed it to Greg, my rainmaker, he was like, "Well, I still feel like we're winning. Like I feel like this is not an accurate representation of our success." And I said, "Okay, sure." And this is sort of what we, set up as our goals for the year. This is really the only like measurement towards our success that we have to go by. So your priorities may have shifted, but our overall goals have not. Megan likes to help us remember that we're running a business. And so we obviously like focus on profit, and we are on course to hit our profit goal, if not surpass it. So yay. However, a lot of that also has to do with the massive cuts that we made because of COVID. So I don't know if that's a full win, but I'm taking it as one. And Greg and I really kind of measure our personal success on the team as like based on growth, right? Because we don't just want to do this for ourselves. We're not doing this to try to like be millionaires ourselves. We're trying to do this so that we can help other people be successful in their real estate careers, because that's really like what matters to us. Greg's really focused on helping people achieve their financial freedom through real estate, whether that's like his own teammates. He wants everybody on his team to actually be a homeowner. He wants everybody on his team to help everybody in their family be a homeowner, because it's like the number one path to financial security, especially in this volatile country with rents right now. So, when you look at our production numbers, no, we're not winning, but did we add people to our team, and are we helping people start their real estate careers and like fall in love with it? Yes. So are we winning? That depends on who you ask and what perspective you take.
Before Cameron answers that question, did anybody want to ask Ray anything?
I promise I'm not scary.
Okay, let's hear from Cameron, and then maybe we'll have some discussion.
Wait a
Well,
minute.
I got so focused into what Ray was saying, I forgot the question already.
Oh, I'll re-ask it. Paula, did you want to say something first?
Yeah. So Ray, when you guys looked at the goal and what you achieved and what you didn't achieve, did you keep the goal did you end up keeping the main goal for the rest of the year, or did you guys reset that goal?
No, we kept all of our goals the same. I guess when I say like we changed things, so our main number one goal was like profit, right? And then our priorities to get there were to close 80 units, and then to add to the team by like 5 agents, and then add to the ops team so that we could process our transactions more smoothly and increase customer care, and then to protect the profit. And using those priorities, we were going to achieve the profit goal. And the only thing that we really changed priority-wise was we're not looking to add 5 agents, because we've done that. Now it's a matter of how do we make those 5 agents successful so that we can get to that profit goal. That's really the only thing that we changed.
Okay, Cameron, your question was, how did you approach your mid-year reset, like recasting a vision, and like tell us about your process and how that went?
I feel like I've done nothing but GPS all week long. I feel like I make one and someone judges it and hates it, and then I start fresh and I'm collaborating with the rest of my team to get us all on the same pages. But so we sat down this week and kind of looked at our overall goal, and we are not on pace to hit it, and we don't see any way that we could hit it. So we did lower ours. We wanted to close 500 transactions, and we feel like we didn't set ourselves up with the first of the year for that. Even though we've done great through this whole COVID thing, our very first quarter was not ideal. So we reset our goal and priorities and basically changed the whole entire thing. We did something a lot better this time as we collaborated a lot more than we did when we first set the goals. And when we first did it, it was more just like, this is our goal. What's everyone going to do? Go figure that out. And we each came back with like our one thing that each leader on the team had a GPS for to hit our 500 transactions. But this time we actually all sat down and put that together. And it actually did take me saying, we're going to do this together and scheduling a time and forcing everyone to come get on the same page for us to do it. But it was way helpful.
So you did something interesting, or said something interesting the first time we talked about sort of the mid-year. And you said, talk about how you were telling me your strategies, you guys had like crushed your strategies, but the priorities not so much. So talk about that.
Yeah, so I came up with a genius idea. One of my priorities, I wanted to get a referral from every closing, even though that when I say it, I'm like, I couldn't do that. Mike Hicks, who writes the book on getting a referral per closing, doesn't get one per closing. So it was a little too lofty, but we weren't even anywhere close to that. And I looked at our strategies and I went through and I actually accomplished each one of the strategies, but they didn't roll up and have any sort of effect. And so part of my problem is I was so focused on just the strategies, I didn't care the overall outcome. I forgot that they were all supposed to add together to equal the priority. Super kind of like side topic with that. One of my favorite books is called The Lean Startup. It's basically labs. That's the whole idea, is you need to test the things to make sure you're going to get the right outcome. I feel like we didn't do that at all. We didn't hold them accountable. We didn't look at them often. We didn't see if it was moving the needle. We had our strategies. We built our GPS. Everyone signed off on them. And so we just went with those rather than checking in like, okay, this is working or this is not working. We need to adjust these. So it took us 6 months to figure that out, but now we're going to meet weekly for like 5 minutes and just say, are these strategies moving the needle or do we need to change the strategies?
I love that. How many times do we concentrate on the activity and we don't really see if the activity is leading to the outcome we want?
Yeah, it's like running Google ads and never closing anything from Google.
So panel, Ray and Cameron, as you guys are like going now into Q3, Q4, like you've had Ray really had like a reset, and Cameron, you kind of had like a revisioning, right? Like we brought the goal down, like we re-envisioned the whole thing. Like now that you're going into Q3 and Q4, like what are some of the most important things that you're going to change or do differently to stay on track or to manage your GPS than you did in the first half of the year?
One of my things is it kind of hit me. I live in really two worlds. So I'm the director of operations and we have a director of sales, but we don't really have anyone lead generating and like that marketing kind of side. We have an ISA, but he's not that leader yet. And so I kind of do like the end and the start of the transaction. So I kind of have the two worlds, and I was trying to create a one thing to fit both of those. So I had the realization that I really kind of wear two hats in that, and I need two one things, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it's because it is two positions that I'm doing. So I have two different GPSs for what I am doing and strategies and priorities with those. And then hopefully one day I get to hire away one of those GPSs and leverage me out of that position. But for now, with it just being me, I have all the responsibility.
I have dogs barking and I'm trying really hard to like make them be quiet, but it's not working. So sorry. I think so we were only kind of looking at our GPS. Let me rephrase that. I was looking at the GPS monthly when I was like sort of going over my 411 and creating my 411 for the month. And then I was really only kind of focusing on, well, what was I supposed to achieve this month? Like Cameron said, focusing on the activities and did I cross that off my to-do list? Great. It's going to just magically like get us to our goals because I wrote it down and it says it's going to get us there, right? That's not how that happens. And my Rainmaker was not checking his GPS and like going off of that. So we have recommitted to checking, our goals versus our GPS versus our 411 on a weekly basis, not a monthly basis, and then also checking in and making sure, yes, we got these activities done, but are they moving the needle in the right direction? Are they going backwards, right? Like, is this a detrimental thing that we're doing? And just sort of regularly monitoring things rather than just keeping our fingers crossed that we do these things and it's going to magically get us to where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, another thing is I think sometimes we get caught up in the activity of the GPS, like creating it and making sure it looks good. And we forget why we actually have it. It's our one-page business plan that should help us accomplish this year's goal that should put us on path for someday goals. Like that's the whole goal setting to the now process is for the someday goals. And so we come up with these ideas. And even when I was talking to like my ISA about his new GPS, he was like putting down where he's going to get leads or where he's going to get the appointments that he's going to set. I said, if you could only do one thing, how would you set these appointments? Which would you do? And he chose one. And I was like, okay, well, focus the most on that. Like, stop trying to come up with other things. Like, what's your business plan? Like, make it real and not just check the boxes. I need 3 priorities and 5 strategies for each. But actually, like, what is the real plan?
Love that.
So how did your guys' GPS affect your 411s? How did that match?
Okay, so Megan had me go through when I was done with the original GPS. We had these activities and these tasks that needed to be done to get us to the priorities, and she had the brilliant idea to like write whose name, like who was responsible for that, write their name right next to it, right, and then put the due date. When is that activity? When does it need to be done by? So I did that with the Rainmaker, and we went through and we sort of created, then now we have to split GPSs, right? His priorities and then my priorities. And we looked at that. I looked at that, my GPS every month, and I said, okay, well, what are the things that are supposed to be done by the end of this month or by the end of next month if, I'm ahead or whatever. And then that was what sort of went on my 411 as my monthly objective. And then I broke that down. Well, what needs to happen each week in order to make that happen by the end of the month? That was how that fed into that, which really helps me kind of understand the purpose of the 411, because I think for a really long time we used it as a really fancy to-do list versus a success list. So that was really helpful.
So my team, we've kind of taken this to the extreme. Every year we do what we call the retreat, where we set goals in 7 areas of life. And then we come up with, we just call them the habits that you need to do, but it's basically the 3 priorities you need to do to achieve those goals. So it's like health, mental, relationships, career, wealth, impact, and productivity. Almost forgot that one. And so I have a goal in each one of those areas of life. And every single month, I sit down and come up with what my big goal is going to be for that month that's going to move that needle. And then each week, I sit down and put what is the one thing I'm going to do in that area of life that's going to complete my monthly goal to hopefully complete the yearly goal. And something that I didn't do, but I kind of regret not doing it, was part of it. We called it the 7-12 because it sounds like Gary Keller came up with it. is it each of the 7 areas of life, each month, where should you be on it? So like if you wanted to lose 12 pounds in the year, you have to lose 1 pound a month. And so what should your weight be at each of those times? And so you can look up at any month and see, I'm this far away, or I'm ahead. Same with closings, things like that. Relationships and mind, those things are a little bit harder to judge if you're on course. And that's why I didn't do it, is because I didn't have like a measurable number. But I've noticed the things that I can measure, I have done better in. And I think it is because there's just some sort of score that I'm trying to improve. Not just because what gets measured gets managed, because I'm thinking about the rest of them. I'm trying in all of them, but I'm doing better in the ones that I have a score for. So I basically live out of my 411, because then Monday morning I set my whole calendar for the week, and I have all the whirlwind activities that I have, but I make sure that each of my areas of life, whatever I put down for that week needs to be done, gets in my calendar, and then I just have to do it at that time.
I love that your team helps everyone focus on all of the areas of life and not just the one, so that you guys have like a little GPS for your whole life wheel.
Yeah, your business grows to the extent that you do. So got to grow everywhere.
Yeah, love it. Questions for these guys? Like, what would you like to ask them so far?
I would be curious to know what you guys found as being the main thing that caused you to be off course. So you've done this reset at the mid-year, and both needed to adjust. And so what do you feel like played into the lag that you were experiencing there?
So I think something that could have helped me is if I would have had like a scoreboard in my face for each of my priorities. I used to have to like try to look things up, and it was hard. So it wasn't like something that I did often. But if I knew like 40% of our closings give us referrals, like I would be ecstatic about that, because that was higher than before. And then, but the goal is 1 per closing. And so if I could just see that in my face constantly, I think I would have been trying to tweak my strategies a lot sooner, because I would notice that things aren't making a big difference what I was doing.
Can you, and I apologize because I came on the call late, what were your 3 priorities like that you were working towards?
Well, I didn't even say, so you didn't miss out. So I took it more as like a hub, like every aspect of it. So I wanted a referral from every closing. I wanted to just, and I didn't have a score for this, which is probably why I didn't get very much better, but I wanted to get more referrals from our database, the 2 and 12. I wanted to actually do from both our agent database and then like just the team, all of our past agents' closings that aren't on the team anymore, wanted to get those. And then I wanted every lead that we generate to get our standard. So called within 5 minutes, called every other week if they're a nurturer, those kind of things. And they weren't just in my face enough.
So these were the priorities for the operations team to ensure that your team hit their overall goal of 500 closings for the year,
yep.
Right? Yep. Where are you guys at right now?
We have 183 closed.
Okay.
So one thing, this is a great point. I'm glad you brought this up, Ashley. Like one thing, Cameron, talk to us about, because at the beginning of the year, you were like, the goal's 500, we'll hit 300, but the goal's 5. And you're on track to like do more than 3, but you're like much closer to what you said was reality in your head. So talk to us about how you like got from like why it was 5 and not 3, and tell us about that.
Well, our director of sales gets a big bonus if he hits 500. So that was one of the reasons that he wanted that goal. And in my mind, most of our agents have been on the team for a while. We don't have new agents on the team. Most of them have been on the team for more than a year. So we kind of have an idea of what they're capable of. Now, everyone can change. People can want to pick things up, but they didn't. So I knew about what we could get, and I didn't think we would recruit quick enough to actually make a big dent in that. And so I don't like thinking small, though. So I was completely fine with the 500. It's like the kind of idea, like the 10x thinking, like make your goal 10 times bigger and do your actions 10 times bigger. And you might not hit your goal that's 10 times bigger than what you thought, but you're going to hit bigger than your normal goal. So I was okay setting crazy goals. Even if I knew I wasn't going to hit it, I was going to act like we were going to.
You also mentioned one of the things I love that you said up front was like in the beginning, like in the last fall, before I knew you naturally, you guys really did this in a silo. Like everyone did their own and said, here's like my contribution. And then this time at the reset, it sounds like you guys really did it in collaboration. So you had everybody communicating like what's realistic versus just the DOS saying it's 500 and everybody else going like, okay, like sure.
Yeah, I can deal with that. Yeah, that was a lot more helpful to get together with the leadership and come up with it, because then everyone was a lot more bought in. We could speak our concerns, like they're not going to get 500, like let's talk about that, rather than just like, okay, let's see.
So how do you get buy-in, like Ray and Cameron? Let's go. I love this line of questioning. Like how, if you, especially Ray, because you said something interesting. Like you said, the pieces that I control, I got an A, like for the most part. So how do you get buy-in for the pieces that your name's not on when you're really driving sort of the GPS train? How do you do that? I don't know. You guys tell me.
I don't know. I'm still working on that. Most of our team, other than myself and the Rainmaker, it has been on the team for less than a year. So really we're and honestly the majority of them have been in real estate for less than a year, right? So we're really just sort of, we're guiding this ship on our own. And basically we strive not to be one of those teams that is like, we're going to set this overall team goal and this, everybody's going to like work towards this one big team goal, right? We don't want to push production on individuals who aren't like, they don't want to do mass numbers of production, right? They want to do real estate for other reasons, right? Maybe they just want to do real estate as like a side gig, or maybe they want to do it because they want to invest on their own, but they also want to help other people while they're doing that. So our objective is to help our teammates reach their goals. So keeping that in mind, obviously our Rainmaker has his own goals, and we together have goals or visions for the overall team. And so really that's where our GPS comes from. And then, we help each agent come up with their GPS, say, what is your production goal for the year, and what is your sort of growth plan look like to get you there? We sort of take it as more of a coaching job versus like we're building this big business, which is why it's helpful that Megan reminds us that we're still running a business, because we don't really think of it as a business, and we don't like think of it as like a corporation. We really honestly think of it as a support system for our agents. So it's more about getting them to buy into their own goals versus like a team goal. So I bought into our GPS. My Rainmaker didn't necessarily buy into his pieces of the GPS, but he, has other values and other priorities, and he did buy into the recruitment section. And so we both worked really hard on that. So that is, of course, the one thing that actually got accomplished. So we take our buy-in and our team mentality very different from a lot of the Keller Williams teams. So I don't know, still working on that.
Yeah, it's hard because you can't want it more than they do. I have these agents on our team that I know they could close more if they just did more of the activities. And if I feel like I want them to close more than they want to close more. And so it's super frustrating sometimes that they have the potential, they're just not working up to it. And I think it's really their why. Like, for example, my health goal has been the same exact health goal every single year for the last 3 years. And my problem is I like Mountain Dew more than I like my health goal. So I'm just not hitting it. And it's the same thing with our agents and their production. They decide they're just complacent in life rather than make some phone calls or take it to the next level. And I think that's where they have to want it.
Right.
And they have to, like you were saying, right, they have to have the buy-in or they don't do it, which is hard with the agents because they're just 1099, do whatever they want kind of a things. We can try to enforce the standards and whatnot.
Right.
But when you look at the admin team, that's hard too, because you need to help them create a goal that fits within your goal, that they have buy-in, but also hold them very accountable and be their leader and push them further so they can do more. So I've been trying to think about that a lot and just thinking how others have pushed me to improve myself and hopefully emulate that with those around me. But I don't have the answer yet.
Cameron, have you guys talked at all about if your goal for next year is going to be the 500?
No, we'll probably decide in November. Early November is when we do our retreat. And so we kind of have two goals that we do. It's like all of our agents put out their goals and then we put out what we want to accomplish, because sometimes the agents say, I'm going to do 60. Like the past 4 years, you've done 20. So what's going to be different this year than the last year's? And they don't have an answer. And so we can't take that as a 60 kind of a goal. We have to take it as a 20, but we also know we're going to lose some agents. We're going to gain some agents. And so we come up with our own goal based off of what we think everyone's going to do, plus who else we're going to bring. We just don't tell the agents that.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I brought that up, because if your goal was 500 this year and you're doing exactly what you expected with the agents you have, so then my mind immediately went to, is your goal for next year going to be 500, and what's going to change between this year and next year? And should that be part of your GPS for this year, because it's going to affect next year?
Exactly. We're doing, so with our reset, we kind of looked at the whole year, but then really planned out like a third quarter GPS, which I don't think GPS is built to do that. Goal setting to the now says it's not, but we did it. So you can. But we looked at it and decided that we need a number of under contracts is what we looked at for the third quarter, because we can control that a little bit. And so when we added all of the under contracts, assuming our under contract to close rate, we would be short unless the fourth quarter bumped up a whole bunch. We're like, well, we could hit our third quarter goals if we don't focus on recruiting, but if we recruit people, then that could help us with our fourth quarter goals and longer term. And so even though our goal was to get an under contract number, one of the priorities is to recruit 5 more people. So that third quarter goal will help the fourth quarter. So even though we took it as a third quarter, we were looking bigger. So I think Gary would be okay with us setting a third quarter GPS, because we thought big too, thought the whole year.
Anybody else have a thought? I mean, like, let's open it up to discussion, right? Like, we've all been there, right? You've got your GPS and either maybe your leadership team is struggling to buy in, your agents are struggling, your admin are struggling. Like, what are some things you guys have done to work through that and will do to work through that as you reset your GPSs for 2020?
Well, we set our goal this year based upon everyone else's goal. So we went to our end of year or fourth quarter planning retreat, right? Without an actual plan to announce what the goal would be. So the leadership team talked about what we expected to hit, but we didn't have any expectations set for anybody on our team for what our goal for 2020 was going to be. So we did the goal setting activity and made our GPSs and all of that. And based upon that, we determined what the everyone's goal was, and we combined all of that in order to have our overall team goal. So that being said, we're still on track to do 100 less than what the goal was. The goal was set to be 800, and I think we're going to end up around 650, maybe 700 if things just really explode. And so, which is still good. Our Rainmaker is still really excited and pleased for that, and yet it doesn't. For me, it doesn't feel good. It feels like, wow, we failed again. We always now have to talk about how we're behind goal, and so. Something that I think that we're doing now to adjust to that is, as a leadership team, and especially my Rainmaker and I, we're looking to come up with ways and systems, I guess is a better way to put that, to ensure that we can support people so they can sell more houses. You know, like Cameron said, that someone wants to do 60, but they only are going to do 20, and so that's just how it is. And yet, they only, because they're 1099 and all of that, like they only do they do what they're going to do because of the systems that we have. And so we've been working to put some other systems in place to give them more support so that they can sell more houses and it won't be as hard. Like we're taking all the lead generation away from all of our agents, because agents hate to lead generate. They just don't want to do it. And so we're in this big push to hire more ISAs. And just recently, June 15th, we took the sign call phone away. So agents couldn't take those calls because that's the only way that they were getting appointments. And so now the ISAs are setting those appointments and doing the outbound calls, and we're getting more ISAs. So they'll sell more if they don't have to lead generate, and we just set more appointments for them. And we've put more support systems in place as far as administrative support to help make those transactions go further and a better experience. So that being said, though, there's going to have to be split adjustments that happen in order to pay for all of that. And yet I think we can sell that. I think that agents will take a different split so they can have 3 times as many closings and just focus on the part of the transaction they really like. That's not going to happen overnight, but that's our plan.
I have a question for everyone on how you guys do GPSs. So my Rainmaker is a big fan that each of the priorities alone could accomplish the one goal. So for example, if you want to close 30 transactions, you would figure out, okay, I need 200 people in the database to get the 2 to 12 kind of a thing, or I need to have 60 open houses, whatever the ratios are. But sometimes I have a hard time with that. Like if I wanted to generate 1,000 leads, like should each of them be budgeted and worked out for 1,000 leads? Is that how everyone else is doing it? Or do I have a crazy Rainmaker that's pushing me too hard? That is a good thing.
No one wants to share.
Well, okay, so we try to make ours to where it's that, right? Like that's the mindset that we go into it initially with. It doesn't end up being that way at the end. When we get to the end, it's more of like, I don't know, like the first 2 done separately could get us to the individual goal, and then the other 2 are sort of like support systems for the first 2, if that makes sense. You know, like, so let me give you specific exampps. So our first priority was to close 80 transactions, right? And so we had, you know, you get I think it was like 60 from the Sphere and past clients and past client referrals and everything like that, and then like 15 or something from database growth and cultivation, because we are terrible at touch plans. So we made that way lower. And then we were going to start a new farm this year, which, yay, we picked a really good year for that. And we were going to get 5 out of that neighborhood, right? And then the second goal, second priority was to increase conversion rates of our agents, the number of appointments that they would set through like script practicing improvement, and then the number of appointments that they would get signed, conversion rate improvement through practicing the actual like appointment and doing mock appointments and everything like that. And so those 2 alone would theoretically get us to our unit goal. And then the last two priorities were strengthening our systems and processes in operations, because we were bringing on a TC internally. So we needed to make sure that we had somebody who could support that kind of production on our team internally when we were before outsourcing it. And then, of course, since our number one priority was profit, we had to protect the profit, right? So we had to go through all of our stuff and make sure that we were actually spending money where we needed to be spending money, and taking away things that we didn't necessarily need. So like the first two alone could get us to that goal. And then the second two priorities really were like backup systems, like laying a stronger foundation, I guess, to get us there, if that makes any sense. So we go into it with that mindset, like they should each work to do that, but it doesn't, I can't mentally get on board with that. Because if that were true, then wouldn't we just pick one and put all of our efforts into that one thing, right? Like, why are we put all of these priorities down here and then like split all of our attention if one thing could get us to the, I mean, I get it. Like, we don't live in a perfect world, a perfect bubble where these activities get us to what we actually want them to do, but I can't get on board with it mentally. So.
Yeah, he's like, that way if you hit a third of each of them, we hit our goals. I was like, or we just
right.
the goals
all in one and then done. Makes my job easier too. I don't know.
That's super interesting, because I think a lot of it has to do with the way you set up your GPSs too. Like, just depending on the team and what you focused on, because not only are the strategies prioritized, as you guys said, it's also how are you prioritizing the priorities, right? So number one is actually the one thing that should get everything else.
Yep.
Two, also could do that, but only if number one was executed high enough. So like, for instance, one of the ways I've seen it done is like, if your listings is first, your buyers are second, and just client care is third, like something from MAPS models. If you think about that, if your listings, if you made listings, like if you had 500 listings, Cameron, you would make
those buyers.
Your buyer goal, right? Which ultimately would get you to the listings you had.
Yeah, I heard that Jeff Woods and Jay Papasan did something, I guess, when Jeff was supposed to give his GPS to Gary and Jay, they like covered up the priorities 2 and 3 and said, is anything in priority 1 dependent on the other 2 priorities? And he said, no. So he said, great. Well, then do that until you feel like you have accomplished or you are accomplishing it. And then you can do number 2 and then number 3. And so that works right into that model. Focus on the listings, the buyers will come, and then focus on the buyers, and hopefully don't forget about the customer experience.
I think it goes in the admin side too, right? What's our number one return on investment? It's either going to be the touch plans we're running and or referrals, right? Based off that, when you think about an actual business plan and what we need to accomplish, and that could be challenged, right? It's interesting. I would think referrals, then your 36 to convert that we look at, but both equally could produce a significant amount of transactions from the operations side of it. So you have that too when you look at it.
It does depend, I think, on like your philosophy for GPSing. So like the each priority should be big enough to like accomplish the goal is definitely a Jeff Woods like philosophy. That's his philosophy. Although he's backed off of that recently a little bit, just as he's done more corporate training and less just Keller Williams stuff. And then the initial like Bold 1.0 philosophy was you take the pyramid, so leads, listings, leverage, and you make your GPS off that. And so that's a different philosophy. I think it depends on your team and like where you are. So I think there are times when it makes sense to make each one big enough. So like, just to give a real example, like if your goal was to do 500 units and you thought, okay, with the sales team we have now, if I didn't hire a single person, how many units per would they have to do and what would their conversion rates have to be? That could be like like priority 1, like make my current sales team get to 500 through conversion rate improvement. Then number 2 could be if you had enough leads. If you didn't have enough leads, then it might be a through lead addition. Then priority 2 might be, okay, Like if I assumed my agents actually weren't going to improve at all, so my current sales team wasn't going to improve at all, and everyone I brought on had a similar conversion rate, how many agents would I have to acquire? And then go acquire that many agents. And in that case, it might make sense to double end, like to work both of those goals to the end, because you don't actually know if every single agent you bring in will be the same converter as the agent before. Like you're basing it on a simple math principle that's like not real. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you could focus on improved conversion rates for your existing agents, working to get them to that number, and go recruit based off thinking that you needed that many more at as like all else equal, holding conversion rates without improvement. So that's a win-win because your agents get better, like they convert more business, and the team stacks the odds by going out and getting more agents. And the better you become at teaching your agents to convert, the better those agents will be, and you'd likely get more than 500. Another case might be, let's say you don't have the leads. And so priority one might be like, let's just say we took our current database and it's got enough in it to do 500 leads at 10% return. So maybe the whole priority one would just be 10% return out of the database, and that would get you 500. But maybe you want to stack the odds and go get an equal number of leads if you were going to get them cold, so pay-per-click. And then priority two might be to go get enough leads from pay-per-click to close 500. And then either way, you're likely to hit it, because if you focus on actually converting your database. So priorities like that, it makes sense to stack up. But if you're talking about something else like Ray said, like you're never going to budget your way out of a revenue issue or revenue your way out of a budget issue. So if you want to bring budgets back into the GPS, like just saying profit 40% of GCI, like you have to have the money for that to be the right profit. You know what I mean? Like that's not going to get you there by itself. And it might be a super important thing to put on your GPS if you've never hit that profit goal. Like Ray, they're behind by units. I don't have her tracker up in front of you, but they're behind by units. They're behind a little by GCI. So their GCI is more, they're more on track for GCI than units, which means their average sales price going up. And then their profit is way above any of that because they've slashed all their stuff. And so they figured out how to run it more lean. So that third leg of the stool, the percent of profit, she's held steady, even though the first two are failing. Now she can't 40% of $0 is still $0. So she has to have the revenue to do that with. But as long as she works diligently to perform her budgeting, she can still serve the team, even though by itself it wouldn't get you there. So yeah, I think it depends on.
Yeah, I think 100% agree. Like that's super interesting conversation. I think there's so many ways you can go about it. Because one of the things I didn't hear, and I like the fact you brought that up, which was the budget, was a lot of times what we see with the unit GPS is how many of us are doing your profit and your budget first to know if the unit goal you just set is even going to support a profitable business. Because that's some of the things we see too is, right, we decide agents are like, oh yeah, this is my goal, but we don't even know if that goal supports the business profit as we put it on the GPS. So do any of us or have any of us here set the GPS according to what your profit should be at for the year?
You were with me in the fall. You better be saying yes.
Yeah, I was like, we did, but only because Megan guided us down that right path, because we were definitely doing it the other way. My Rainmaker has had this goal in his mind, this arbitrary goal of 100 transactions. He just wants to hit 100 transactions. He doesn't care how it happens or whatever. It has to happen to get there. He just wants to do 100 because he has really kind of stagnated. And I'm like, what does 100 mean to you? And he's like, I don't know. I just want 100. So when I sort of explained that to Megan, she's like, that's a ridiculous goal and we're not going to do it that way. So we're going to do it like a business and we're going to base it off of profit. And I was like, I don't know where we're going with this, but okay. And we literally went down a totally different path that the Rainmaker and I have really never sort of thought about for our business or even looked at our business from that perspective, which is kind of crazy. But we definitely learned a lot more about our business and about sort of what we want out of it. And by doing it based on profits, we actually were able to sort of think about the business in like a bigger way, versus just doing it based on like, well, we need to do this number of units, and so that means we need this number of agents, and who cares like what we have to sort of like do to get to that point. But doing it based on profit, we're like, well, we can still hit a realistic unit goal and make money instead of spending all of the money to try to hit an arbitrary unit goal that really doesn't mean anything and came from nowhere. So now we're on a more steady path to growth versus a big shoot for the moon and really just sort of hope that we get there and who knows what's going to happen afterwards kind of path that we were initially on. So we're definitely figuring this out as we go, and thank God Megan is on our team.
Zoom high five, Ray. Boom. We've got, what, 8 minutes. Anybody else have a thought or a question or a mastermind topic we could discuss around GPS resets, reviews, recasting vision?
Yeah, I want to thank you guys because it's very timely. Our team is having our GPS meeting coming up July 3rd, 2nd, 5th, something like that, to go over our numbers. And we talked about, should we reset our goals? We're like, no, our goals are our goals. You know, our goal last year was a number. And then part of the way through the year, it's like, well, you know what, if we sell this many houses at the rate we're going, we should probably quit because we're losing money. And so our goal should not just be this number. And so we changed it up to really looking at our spending and everything. And now it's, when we talk about what are we doing, we talk about, are we making money? Are we making money? Do we have enough money? Should we keep going? Should we rethink this? You know, so it really is something, because when I heard Ray say that people on the team are working for different reasons, and I find that on the team that I belong to, a reason that we started working was because we retired and wanted to have something else to do. So there's a lot of people who don't necessarily, you know, it's like their second or third careers, and we're learning it and we're doing it, and now we're becoming masters of it. But we don't want to work until we're dead. We still want vacations. We still want a life. I mean, part of our GPS is we want to have a life. Who's taking the phones? You know, so 5 minutes to a call is like, yeah, okay, well, who's on the call? So when I hear people talking to Keller Williams, it's like, man, you guys are killing it. 800. What? No. Yet we still want to be the best that we can be because of the people that we are and the personalities that came along with us. So when I hear people talking about accountability and saying, all right, you guys, our goal was 100 and our stretch goal was 120. And we were moving and moving and moving. And now we're in our 5th year together. And I mean, we might close 60. I don't even think we're keeping track. I mean, it's bad. And I have a new coach now. I'm not sure where he is on the screen.
I'll give you an air.
There we go. Thank you. So, I mean, he's like, show me your GPS. Well, so, I mean, we looked at it and we actually do a plan and we get together and we talk about, okay, well, how many are you going to do? And how many do you want to do? Well, I'm going to do 12. And if you do 12, and then we can really do 80. This can work based on what we've done in the past. And it can work until you have, I'm taking a cruise. I'm on another trip. I'm taking care of the grandkids. Are you going to be working this month? I think so, you know. So our accountability is challenged by what we put up with or what we accept, because we're all in the same boat. Well, the first thing on the calendar is 17 vacations. And who's going to be working around all these vacations? And we only have 5 people on our team. Okay, so we talk about it and we're like, all right, we're not getting rid of anybody. And we all have a goal. So, I mean, the challenges are real and fun, and we do the activities. We try to do them. We try. There is no try, I know. So, yeah, it's real. I mean, it's real. It really is. And my personality is like, we gotta do this. And they're all like, Kathy, you're killing us. We're never talking to you again because I'm nag. So I said, you know what, I'm done. You guys, if you don't get another paycheck, you haven't closed a single house in 2 months, and I don't even know why you come to work. I'm not sure why you're on the team. I don't know what the deal is, but I want to be a real estate agent. Okay. Here's the activities. So, I mean, it's been a tug of war for me because I'm like, you guys, you have it. You're so good at it. And I do have one person on the team who we talked about GPSing, and he was a corporate man. He came from a big company and he ran, you know, he had a $750 million budget, you know, something ridiculous. And he said, I'm not keeping track of my calls. I'm not keeping track of this. I don't want to do that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, 3 years later, here's my spreadsheet. Here's my numbers. Here's my, right? Because it's in him. He's like, I realize if I make this many calls, I get this many closings and I spend this much time and I worked on my scripts. But remember when you were like dragging your feet and kicking me, I'm not doing it. And now you're like, I don't know why y'all aren't doing this. I know. So it's been really interesting and challenging, and I like these calls, so thank you.
It's great when you have an agent on the team who's figured it out, has been successful in figuring it out, and can share that story with other agents.
It's great. I mean, it's great. It really was. And I would say we took him to Bold with us a couple of years ago, and I've heard all these trainings. I've been to all the conventions. I know, drink the Kool-Aid, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Except that it really played into his life and it really made a difference. So now when you hear him at Bold, he's the first person to stand up and say, I was that person who said it'll never work. And yet the circumstances in his life turned out that, you know, these Bold laws are everywhere. And you need them and you use them, and he's appreciative, and I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it really is amazing to say, hey, John Driscoll, tell us about your story. Oh, okay. I got a story, you know, about how I just wanted to have a part-time gig, selling some houses and learning some stuff because we're all very learning based. And it turned out that, hey, this works. This is real. This can apply to all sections of your life. Yeah. It's really fun. It's really fun, and it is fun.
It is, and now you can keep hopping on these calls so you can keep learning and masterminding with it.
Do you guys do this every week?
Every Thursday.
Wow. It's amazing. I have to readjust my schedule.
All right, gang, we're at the bottom of the hour, and I've got to jump off for my next call. It was great. Thank you, Ray and Cameron, for being our panelists, and thank you, everyone, for masterminding. See you next week.
All right.